Hey everyone, I'm Danny Nee. I'm the Executive Director for Community Investment Corporation, and this is our podcast, Let's Talk Small Biz Finance. I am joined today by a good friend, Heath Vescovi-Chiordi. Heath is the Director of Economic Development for Pima County. His work focuses on economic development and workforce development with a priority on sustainable and diverse growth. The goal is to increase the county's viability for business attraction, retention, and expansion. He's a U of A grad with a master's degree in public administration and a certified Arizona economic development professional. He's won numerous awards and accolades, including being named one of Tucson's 40 under 40. He's won the Gabe Zimmerman Public Service Award for Emerging Leaders in 2021. He was named one of Biz Tucson's Next Gen Leaders in 2022 and the Economic Developer of the Year by the Arizona Association for Economic Development in 2024. That is quite a resume and a lot of awards. I mean, how did you do that? It seems like it's so hard to win awards. I definitely understand. Have you ever won a copper cactus, Heath?
I have. You've never nominated me for that, so that's a very unfortunate circumstance. Jeez.
Well, I simply know him as the guy who single-handedly brought back buttoning your polo all the way at the top, as well as the quarter zip sweater under a sports jacket trend for guys. So that's what I'm trying to do today. I've got both. Out of mad respect for your fashion and style. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, man. No, thank you. And let me make one quick correction because apparently I didn't read it close enough. I don't have my CECD yet, but I do have my Arizona ED Pro certification. So just want to make sure we got that clear.
That is tremendous. We should probably stop now because I don't even know if it's worth it anymore.
It's not, honestly. It's not.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining. I'm going for my two ferns vibe here. So you've done so much already and you're still so young. So how does it feel to have already peaked and be on the downhill slide from here on out?
At 20, it's actually jarring. Legitimately, it's so jarring. If you can believe I'm only 20. No, I think that's an actual thing, though. People think about that all the time. You've gotten to a certain level, you're of a certain age. Well, where do you really go from here? So I think about that quite frequently, to be perfectly honest. You laugh, you jest, but it keeps me up at night. It's existential.
It's just because I'm old and I haven't made it yet. All right, so let's get to some serious conversation about economic development. We are, very honored to have you here. When people talk about economic development, it's just like, well, what does that mean? So can you just describe for our audience, like, what is economic development?
Yeah, and thank you for having me, Danny. This is really fun. This is super cool. It's between two ferns, but I don't see a fern for you, so we got to fix that
I know
soon.
you just have the one.
For me, though, economic development is a few different things, and there's kind of a traditional component to it and then kind of a little bit of a newer one. So typically, right, you're talking about the attraction of jobs, the retention of jobs, capital investment, and all those different things, right? Those are the traditional kind of metrics of economic development. I think for us, especially at Pima County, we're talking about community-based economic development. So we take into consideration all of those other things. And then what we also want to do is make sure that we are doing things that are in line with the community, that have direct community benefits, that reflect the values of the community, our board of supervisors, councils throughout the entirety of the region, and that we're aligning those two things. So we want to make sure that we're creating jobs and expanding job opportunities and making sure people are earning enough money. But we also want to do that while kind of maintaining the ethos, right, of what our policymakers do and what our community wants. So it's a little bit of a twofold thing there. And there's tangible and intangible benefits, right? So we want to seem attractive for outside investment, which is a real traditional thing, but we want to make sure that the jobs that we get here are quality pay, they've got childcare opportunities, healthcare being paid for them, all those different things. So people can work, are happy and healthy, and can move up or around, side to side, whatever that looks like, and give them economic mobility.
Fantastic. And I think that is a great description. It's really good because sometimes people only think of one piece of it and don't think about the whole part. We're going to play a little game later on that's called This or That. And sometimes I think that's a problem that we have right now. It's always one thing or another. And we're not talking about, how there really are multiple strategies and in economic development. I know that there are lots of tools, not just one tool for success. But talking about success, so how do you know that you're doing it right, and how do you measure success?
There's a lot of ways to do that. So first and easiest, right, is that we're checking off check marks that are more of KPIs in our economic development strategic plan. That's a policy document approved by our board. And so we know that when we're knocking those things off, we're doing the right thing, right? We're making progress, we're moving the needle. But I think there's a lot of other things that we can talk about too. It's how we're engaged with the public, right? How we're including, board of supervisors strategies and things, how we're received with projects, how we're looked at from outside individuals like site selectors and things like that, how we're perceived in many, many different ways, not only as we exist now, but what our plan is to be in the future. And I think the key component to that is that it's not just economic development that gets us there. It's every single plan that we have. It's every single action that the county takes or that you take or, that various institutions throughout the region take. So when all is said and done, we think about what we want to be, and then we think about reconciling all those different visions to get to that point. So the cool thing about my job and your job as well is that it's never done, right? It's a really, really long ongoing process to get to this thing that we want to make attainable. And it's step-by-step incremental progress all the way through.
It is something that I've always liked. Community Investment Corporation has an economic development mission. And, I sort of joke like it means it's almost anything is in play. And, it's a little more, obviously directed than that. But on some level, there are so many things that are intertwined in, bringing together a local economy. One thing that we focus on here, and I know that that, is really on small businesses. It's while business attraction is certainly an important part of economic development, the place that CIC focuses more is on our small local businesses. So what do you think that small businesses should know about your guys' work specifically?
So that an entire arm of what we do is dedicated to like small and medium-sized businesses. And that specifically is business retention and expansion. So as an example, we do kind of host all these different meetings where we'll go out to businesses that exist throughout the community. We'll chat with them. We'll talk about what their current status looks like and if they're feeling good about where they're at right now so that we can retain them and make sure that they have everything they need. Or if they're looking to expand, what are the things that they need to accomplish or acquire in order to do that? And expansion can mean 10,001 different things based off of, that kind of multitude of whatever's happening with them at any given moment. It could be adding one person. It could be adding 50. It could be creating or updating a new business plan. It could be adding square footage. It could be accessing a wet lab or a dry lab space. Literally any of those different types of things at any given moment. So we facilitate those meetings, we facilitate those discussions, and then we try to provide access to those things. And you are actually a provider of access to some of those resources that we're looking at for a lot of different people. So that's one core component of what we do. And I think we'll touch on it a little bit later, but we're actually going to be ramping that up in the coming fiscal year. We have a lot more opportunity to provide some resources directly, do a little bit more collaboration with organizations like yours, and also internal collaboration that should yield some workforce development opportunities and business retention and expansion opportunities too.
Awesome. And I want to give you guys a shout out in terms of being a partner and a collaborator. We find it really easy, and that isn't always the case. And so you guys are always open to our ideas, and I know that you're always asking us. I've participated in helping and looking at drafts of things, which again, I think is really important. You guys aren't just sitting there doing it all on your own. Not that you guys aren't smart geniuses over there, but at the same time, getting, being able to get the input. And I would say as somebody who's a practitioner, it is great to have government partners like you guys are. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
What are the major changes that you are seeing in the economy overall? How do you think it's affecting our region and then also our small businesses? Is there anything, I do think with things like tariffs, the war, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. So you must be sort of in touch with that for your job. So what are you seeing?
Yeah, there's a ton of shifts happening right now, and it's happening at every different level. So at the federal level, right, you mentioned a few different things, and those certainly have an impact on the way that we are perceived and the way that we attract new businesses, and especially because attraction right now is not just from directly outside of state lines, right, or the county lines or whatever. it's global, right? So we're talking with companies that are all over the place. So anything having to do with conflict or federal level policy that might affect supply chain or manufacturing chains or certain specific goods, right, that are required for XYZ, those things really do have an impact on the way that we attract businesses and the way that we position ourselves, right, to say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we can offer, and this is why we're the best choice. That also has an impact, right, on small and medium-sized businesses. It also has an impact on industries specific, right? So in volatile times, you'll end up having more opportunity with certain industries over others. And then in times like this, there's a lot of issues with supporting small and medium-sized businesses because large businesses are either kind of staying put where they're at and they're not growing. So that means that they're not utilizing additional services that are provided by small and medium-sized businesses. So we keep track of all those different things and trying to understand those things. They shift every single day, quite literally. And so what we're trying to do is represent a sense of constancy. So this is what we can offer, and we will offer it tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, so that those values don't change. And so that means that those people can make a better calculation about coming here and accessing small business resources or medium-sized businesses and helping create that ecosystem a little bit better. It's very complicated. It's really complex. And you're right. We do deal with it every single day. It's hard to keep a beat on 24/7.
Yeah, and I do think, again, there so many things are kind of interwoven. The idea of small businesses are often servicing larger businesses, so they have to actually care about what's happening to larger businesses. Again, appreciate your perspective on that. All right, so we are going to, in a second, get into some of the resources, some of the new things you're working on, but we have to know for sure that you are like a trusted type of person. So we're going to play a little this and that. We'll figure out this or that, and that way people can judge for themselves whether you are to be trusted. It's my ode to Black Sheep, who was a rap group back in my day, a song, The Choice Is Yours. And so this is, if anybody wants to check that out on Spotify, I'm going to plug them as well. All right. So teacher or economic developer?
Teacher.
All right. So why do you say that? I know why you say it, but...
Well, first, you're a former teacher, so you got to give it up.
Yes.
My girlfriend is currently a teacher, so let's be realistic. But teachers are the fabric of the community in many, many ways. Economic developers, a dime a dozen. No big deal.
I do love it, too, because the idea is like we all know who our favorite teacher is. Somebody now might be able to say who their favorite economic developer is. You, of course, but in general, it would probably be a little bit harder to figure that out.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Batman or Robin? You are one and I'm the other. So who's what?
I love the idea of being bossed around by you a little bit. So I'm going to go, I'll be Robin, you can be Batman this time.
I appreciate that. I also wanted to throw out that Batman's costume would have to cover your fancy hair. So it's very important that you are actually Robin. That one was a right or wrong one that you had there. And this one, I'm not even sure. I may be dating myself. Pinky and the Brain or Ren and Stimpy?
Oh, those are effectively equal, in my opinion. If I had to choose, I would go Pinky and the Brain, 1,000%.
All right, so then the follow-up is Pinky or the Brain?
It's got to be Pinky, dude. He added the most to that show, 1,000%. Without him, there are no hijinks.
Narf. Yes, absolutely. All right, we got a couple more. Tupac or Biggie?
That's unfair. That's tough, dude. I'd have to go with, I think, Tupac.
Also the right answer. As you know, I went to high school with Tupac, so there you go. Very, very important that you got that answer right. You are trustworthy. Okay, fine. Finally, the last one. Diamondbacks or Dodgers?
So I... Really sorry, everybody that loves baseball. I don't particularly pay attention to baseball, except for when the Diamondbacks won the championship, and I think I was like 15 at the time. So I am going to say Diamondbacks, especially because I'm from Arizona.
That's good. It was a trick question. You're wrong again. San Francisco Giants. That is
thanks.
the actual answer. So thank you so much for doing that. Let's get back to actual stuff. Okay, so what resources should small business owners know about? Are there any that you think are overlooked resources in the community that people should be taking more advantage of? And that is, again, you work with so many of the providers. It doesn't have to be just from Pima County, but your thoughts on what are the types of things that they should know about?
Yeah. So, and you're obviously one of those resources. We all know that you guys do what you do extremely well. And so people, if they don't know about you, certainly should. If you're watching or listening to this podcast, you probably know who CIC is. One of the things I think is really often overlooked is the fact that, like, when we're talking with small businesses and they're looking for a financial resource, some of our local, like, small business lending institutions are consistently overlooked. And I know that you guys do a lot of lending work, right? And there's various types of programs that you have that, facilitate different lending opportunities for different types of businesses and business owners, et cetera. But even some of the more traditional ones, they offer competitive opportunities, and sometimes those things get lost. So we've taken a lot of time to, like, reinforce some of our relationships with those lending institutions so that we can get that information out there a little bit more. And then I think something really specific, Pima Community College, from a training standpoint and opportunity, not necessarily overlooked, but critical in this region. And then our own community and workforce development department, we do have a lot of services that small businesses and medium-sized businesses can use, especially for hiring and especially for training. So if you're looking to retain people or grow them, we actually have resources for those as well. And then the regional IDAs, the industrial development authorities, a litany of opportunities right through the Pima and Tucson IDA. So we always want to be paying attention to that. And then, coming soon, your Pima County Economic Development Office will have a couple of opportunities specific to small and medium-sized business support as well.
That is awesome. And I do think the pointing out the workforce development is great, because it is something that we still continually hear, that it's hard to find the right fit for certain jobs and those types of things. So I think that is really important to note. Okay, so Eminem, I am an R&B sort of rap guy. So Eminem, he talks about going back to the lab again to write more verses. So what is, what are you guys doing in the lab right now? When you go back, what is the economic development department's version of that?
Sure.
What are you guys up to right now?
That's a great question. How much time do you have, man? Like, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, well, let us know.
Well, we're engaging in a lot of grant opportunities right now. So we've got, I think, 2 grants that we've recently applied for. Those are specific to workforce development and the economic development nexus. One of those is in, like, AI and healthcare, and how those two things come together, and effectively how you can create curriculum that integrates into healthcare, and so that those individual healthcare solutions providers and employees can be ready for, like, next generation employment opportunities that are growing, which is really interesting and really fun. And then we're working on a new FAA aviation grant so that we can start doing training opportunities and experiential learning opportunities for youth, so that we can make sure that they get trained up so that they can take positions in the aerospace and aviation industry in this region, which aviation specifically right now, in, like, the MRO space, so maintenance and repair operations, looking for hundreds and hundreds of people in this region right now, and that need is only growing, right? So we're looking at shoring up some of those gaps, and those gaps only exist because the need is so great. There's a lot of organizations that are doing a lot of excellent work right now. The CTE programs across the region, the JTEDs, the Pima Community Colleges of the world, they're all helping to address those things simultaneously. We're also working on attracting new companies, right? So I just mentioned to you both earlier, I am traveling to Taiwan tomorrow. Part of that is actually working with semiconductor companies, assembly and testing and packaging companies, to see if they can come here to Pima County to establish their footprints and grow here. We've had some very long-term discussions with a lot of those types of companies, and so we're going to see if we can bring that to fruition. And we're also working simultaneously to bring more startup companies to the region too. We've got a great startup ecosystem here with UACI, the Tech Park, Tech Launch Arizona, Startup Tucson. And so what we want to do is help contribute to that by creating more technology startups here in the region that can grow here and then eventually, right, turn into that hopeful unicorn of $1 billion valuation. But we want them to be here and feel home here, right? And so that's part of our efforts in Taiwan, but also kind of across the globe simultaneously. And then we're working on some policies that I think are really great. And we've actually got 2 policies recently approved as well. So for our Board of Supervisors, we did an enhanced due diligence policy so that we can provide more information on programs and projects, right, that we're looking to attract. And then a non-disclosure agreement policy so that we can help make sure that our board and the public are better informed when we're talking to companies that require a non-disclosure agreement. And then we're actually working on our first financial incentive policy as well. That's something we've been working on internally. That's actually something that you've taken a look at and reviewed and given us feedback on. And that'll be something new for us to consider. And eventually, right, it'll go through all the different levels of review at the county to get looked at. And maybe it makes it across the finish line, maybe it doesn't. But we're trying to make something that's beneficial for the attraction side as well as the small and medium-sized businesses that exist here so that we can continue to support them. And then everything in between, right? We're always paying attention to policy. We're always making sure that we're talking to the right companies. We're always making sure that we're connecting across borders to ensure that people know that we exist in the first place. And we're creating a brand for economic development for Pima County. So a lot of stuff going on. And I didn't even really touch on workforce development, infrastructure development. We work on all those things as well.
And you guys have a great staff. I know we work with Kelly, we work with Frank, Artemio. So I know that you have a good crew over there as well. And again, the idea, I mean, people can say what they want, but the idea that, I know their first names and, that means that they're showing up in the community where we are. And we, again, really appreciate that.
Yeah. And to your point, though, the one that doesn't get to show up in the community is Julie, who runs my office and my calendar and keeps me sane and does all the administrative stuff. That is equally as important because literally without her, I think I would go insane.
Well, good for shouting her out then. We know often the people that are handling the details are really the ones that are keeping it together. Mm-hmm. All right. So I appreciate you coming again, Heath. It's great to see you. And, I always love, I have this idea. I tell people it's called the Home Depot test. And it's like, if you're in Home Depot and you see somebody, are you going to go down the aisle to see them? Or are you going to duck into another aisle? And you are definitely a guy who passes that. I would definitely come and say what's up. So the last question before we go, which I think is important if you're in Tucson, what is your go-to Sonoran hot dog cart?
Oh, Sonoran hot dog cart. I don't know the name of it, which is super unfortunate. But
that's all right. Then give us here it is. We're just shouting out. We can get the cross streets or whatever.
The general coordinates are literally right next to the bus station downtown off of Congress. And I think it would be Scott at that point. It's set up there every single weekend, every single night. You go there right afterwards, and you have a really delicious Sonoran dog. Yeah, it's
after
wonderful.
Work.
Yeah, that's what I said. After work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Do you go hot pepper or not on the side?
Love a hot pepper, man. Absolutely.
Right on. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for stopping by, Heath. We really appreciate all your work. You guys are up to some great stuff, and we look forward to seeing all the new things that are coming as well.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Take care.
Bye.